Now, on Thursday, a strike by Clover workers turned deadly when a security guard was killed by striking workers. 2 people have been arrested for the murder. The General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, who represent some of the striking workers, say they regret the loss of life. But Giwusa also says Clover is lying to cover up their role in the violence. Now, Stephen Veldhuizen, Clover spokesperson, as well as Mametlwe Sibey, president of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, joins us now from Johannesburg. Thank you so much for your time this evening, gentlemen. I thought it was prudent and quite necessary to get the both of you on air at the same time to get to the bottom as to what is happening with this Clover strike that has been going on for months now. We now have loss of life. 2 people have lost their lives. What's the way forward? Who's taking responsibility? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Veldhuizen from Clover.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to invite us to this talk. Yes, we've 2 weeks ago received, or more, a bit of a week ago, received a memorandum from the unions in terms of what their views are on a settlement of the wage and retrenchment dispute. Unfortunately, it's just again back to square one. It's a plain rejection of what management's put on the table. That's not moving us forward. So it doesn't help if one party comes to the table to negotiate and the other one not. As for the loss of life, I mean, the footage has been distributed on social media and all over the news. It's clear there for everybody to see. I've seen in the news this debate about, buses arriving and who took who where. At the end of the day, someone was killed. You cannot justify that. And that blood's on the hand of the unions.
Mr. Sibey, your response today. The Clover spokesperson says you, as well as the other unions involved in the strike, have blood on your hands. Are your members being violent, and if so, why?
Firstly, let's reiterate, we deeply regret the loss of any life. And for us, this is not just the life of the head of the security of Clover. It is also loss of lives that have been lost since this conflict began, actually going back last year. People will remember that we lost Comrade Managa. Last year we had to collect his brains on the streets. Last week our shop steward was attacked, stripped naked, assaulted for an hour without end inside the factory and in the presence of security of Clover. And of course, the events of Thursday, the 17th of February, are regrettable, but I think also Clover must be honest in terms of what transpired. Steve has, in his previous statements, said that workers were trying to storm into Clover factory. Now, that is totally a total fabrication of facts. What has transpired is that on that day, and as per our notification a day before, which management was aware about because it acknowledged and responded to, we were going to fetch workers at Clayville factory, where they picket daily, to go and demonstrate at Atlas factory in Boksburg. And the reason that management is lying about this, fact that they acknowledged, by the way, in terms of the media statement that we have issued, where they are saying Mr. Patla addressed workers before they departed for Clayville in the internal communication with us, but something that they're not stating publicly is that what has transpired is that once the buses came empty to fetch the workers at Clayville and proceeded to enter Atlas Road, the security was instructed to stop the workers. And they entered they parked the cars, the security cars, in front of the buses obstructing the road. They entered the buses, questioning and intimidating the workers. And when workers refused to stop the procession to Atlas in Benoni on the public road without any lawful authority, security insisted that they must disperse, and where they could not, they started shooting. We have supplied the media with footage of members and buses that were shot with rubber bullets showing holes. One footage that I supplied and photos that I shared with the media shows that one of our members was shot more than 10 times, with rubber bullets. we've taken, and that is available, and we're going to avail it in our media. And the only way that you can shoot somebody with rubber bullet at close range for such a long time, on such many occasions, is because that person had nowhere to go. And this is because this shooting took place inside the bus itself. So, two things. One is that management is lying about the destination of the march. We were not entering and trying to force our way into the factory. Two, the violence was not started by the workers. Notwithstanding that, we ourselves are conducting investigation. We ourselves have no hesitation whatsoever to say that where the violence was avoidable is denounced, and we of course condemn it. And we are saying that ultimately the people who are responsible for this violence, which is Clover management, must be held to account. And we are saying that ultimately, beside the orders to stop the buses without lawful authority, beside the orders to get the security to shoot at our members inside the buses, and the buses hired to ferry our members, ultimately, workers are dying because Mr. Johan Foster, for instance, want to insist that the only way that the company can operate justly is him earning 40 million rand. At the same time, telling workers, for which there are on salaries of 8,000, whom is earning, that these workers who are earning an amount, or he's earning an amount 417 times than their salaries.
All right, Mr. Sibe, I want to just come in there because you say that it is the management and Clover that is responsible for the violence and the deaths taking place. But I think it would be prudent to say that it's both parties. It is Clover and the striking unions that are seeming to fail to find each other on this issue, on the issues rather that are on the table. Mr. Veldhuizen, as Clover, what are you putting forward to the unions to try and end this strike?
Well, if I can put the talks with the unions in context, this process started in August last year, and subsequently, after the Section 189 process finished, we got involved when the government appointed a facilitator. So we've been in talks with the unions for 9 months, and I think we've been bona fide in our presentations to the unions. But unfortunately, our experience of the whole situation is that the unions are sitting back and waiting for management and the company to put something on the table. And unfortunately, that's not how negotiations work. You can speak to the government facilitator himself, and he can tell you they've experienced the same situation. And it repeatedly asked the unions to come back with some credible solutions to the table. So unfortunately, I'm questioning the unions bona fide. I mean, it's quite clear that Mr. Sibe will do anything to deflect from what happened a week ago. I mean, the video footage is quite clear. I mean, it doesn't look like someone, you're talking about 3 guards against 150 people. I mean, why are we discussing smaller facts about buses and who stopped what and what happened, which we deny, obviously? Think about the deaths, and the poor guy that's still in the hospital, most probably going to suffer for the rest of his life. You can't blame that on management. Go look at the videos. It's quite clear where the mala fide is here. It's not even a debate. I'm not even sure why we're having this conversation.
Mr. Veldhuizen, Mr. Sibe cites these exorbitant salaries that management is receiving at Clover, saying that the money is there.
Well, again, a fiction of his imagination. We've actually disclosed everything to them, to their accountants, and even showed to the media, the salaries that was paid to executives during our listing days. You will know, if you don't, during the listing days, we had to publish all our financial statements and earnings of executives in the public domain, and it's quite clear there what he earns. I mean, there's not a lot of executives in South Africa that earns 40 million rand a year. I mean, that is ridiculous. I don't know where he gets his facts, but I would like to see him put something on the table before he spews such nonsense on TV.
All right, it seems that we're not going to find each other on this conversation in terms of what you're saying to me, Mr. Veldhuizen, as well as what Mr. Sibey is saying to me. So I'm left with the question that do we need to have more loss of life in order to get these two parties back on the table? Mr. Sibey?
Firstly, the last time that they published their result, they increased their shareholders' dividend by 240%, while saying that our members can only get 7% increase. That is money, shifted to Sandton, to other, suburbs where the rich shareholders of theirs live, and they were saying that our members should continue to stay in shacks. We are insistent. They refuse to table the cost insofar as management service is concerned. I'm saying that the whole executive management received loans of about 170 million last year, including 107 million that was extended to the CEO alone. We affirm that he is earning 40 million. We said, let them bring the statement to the table. They said the discussions about management salaries are off the table, much as the discussions about their shareholders are off the table. That is the type of people that we are discussing with, and we are saying, how is this going to assist us as a country in resolving the problems of unemployment, poverty, and inequality when a CEO earning 417 times a worker who stays in a shack, whose children are starving, whose family are living in hunger and squalor in the squatter camps of Tembisa, tells those workers that they are earning above the market price. This is what workers are dying for, and these workers is not just Mr. Tech, who, as I said, we profusely regret and are saddened by a loss of his life. It is also Mr. Managa, whose children are fatherless today, who was run over by a Clover truck, whose brother was kidnapped few days before that, and held this is about our shop steward, who today is barely functioning because of brutalization. We've supplied videos that shows that he was assaulted in the presence of security and inside the factory, for which management has refused both ourselves and the police with the footage of those kind of assaults. It is this management that has perpetuated violence for years against our members over and above a brutal condition of austerity that they are subjecting them to.
Mr. Veldhuizen, do we need to see more loss of life before you as management as well as the unions come back to the table and try and end the strike?
We've put our position on the table, and it's for the unions to go back to the table and apply their minds and actually act bona fide in the interest of their members. These union members like Mr. Sibey, they earn their monthly salary. They don't work. They're not the worker. They don't work for Clover. So that's the workers on strike are not earning a salary. So, why do they care if this thing goes on for months and months and months? I'm not even going to engage in this fictitious nonsense that is spewing here on TV because, everything is out there for everybody to see. We deal in facts. I don't want to go and debate on whatever he says here and so on. But we've showed our bona fide intent in terms of what we have to offer. We made it clear in the negotiations. We tried to limit the retrenchments as far as possible, and we've reduced the numbers quite significantly. And what has the union done today? They've just rejected everything. What have they done and come to the party to say to us, listen, we're prepared to compromise on X, Y, and Z? At the moment, they're not compromising on anything. Instead, they resort to violence and try and bully us. So we're not going to submit to the mob.
I think that's where we're going to have to leave it for this evening, gentlemen. It doesn't seem as though there's an end in sight in this particular matter, and it's quite tragic that we're seeing people dying at this point. But that was Stephen Veldhuizen, the Clover spokesperson, as well as Mametlwe Sibey, president of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa.